Imagine a rebel group targeting what they thought was an easy mark, a helpless cargo ship. But they made one massive mistake. The target was a US Navy destroyer. What happens when the attackers pick the wrong fight? In early April 2025, tensions in the Red Sea escalated once again as the Houthi rebels launched another wave of drone strikes. This time, however, their target wasn't just any ship. It was a heavily armed US Navy destroyer, and the rebels were about to make a fatal mistake. Let's dive into this high-stakes moment that reshaped the region's balance of power. The Houthi rebels, notorious for their aggressive tactics, had been targeting vessels passing through the Red Sea since late 2023. Their aim, they claim, is to support Palestine. But in reality, they've become a rising threat to all shipping, from commercial cargo ships to US Navy warships. And when they launched another drone swarm in early April, they thought they were going after a vulnerable target. But that was far from the case. What they locked onto was the USS Carney, an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer, one of the US Navy's most advanced and formidable vessels. With a fleet of drones and missiles headed toward it, the destroyer's radar lit up like a Christmas tree. It was game on. The Aegis Combat System, a state-of-the-art radar and missile defense system, kicked into action, tracking the incoming threats in real time. Within seconds, missiles roared off, targeting and obliterating drones mid-air before they even had a chance to hit their mark. And that's just the beginning. The US Navy didn't just sit back and wait for the threat to subside. Within moments, they transitioned from defense to a counterattack. The Houthis had made a serious miscalculation by picking a fight with one of the most powerful warships in the world. As drones exploded mid-air, the Navy's CIWS, close-in weapon system, those fast-spinning Gatling guns, opened fire, shredding the remaining threats into pieces. But the story doesn't end there. The Houthis had just awakened a sleeping giant. With the threat neutralized, US Navy commanders quickly made a decision. Retaliation was inevitable. Less than an hour after the attack, the US military had already mobilized. Jets launched from a nearby carrier strike group, ready to take out the Houthi launch sites in Yemen. The US military wasn't just sending a message. They were wiping out the very infrastructure the Houthis relied on to carry out their strikes. In a carefully coordinated series of attacks, US jets, including FA-18 Super Hornets and EA-18G Growlers, targeted Houthi-controlled missile launch sites near the port city of Hodeida. Within hours, the sites were destroyed, along with crucial radar and communication systems. By sunrise, Yemen's skies were still filled with smoke as the US Navy's retaliation echoed across the region. The Houthis, a group that had previously launched numerous drone and missile attacks in the Red Sea, believed they could take on a US Navy destroyer with little consequence. Their prior experience with attacking civilian vessels and commercial tankers in these waters led them to think that a US destroyer, part of the growing fleet patrolling the region, would be just another target in their eyes. However, they quickly learned a brutal and expensive lesson in military miscalculation. This was no ordinary vessel they were targeting, but a state-of-the-art, highly fortified US Navy destroyer. An Arleigh Burke-class ship equipped with cutting-edge technology designed not only to defend against attacks, but to retaliate with devastating efficiency. They thought they could sneak one past a floating fortress. Big mistake. On April 1, 2025, the USS Harry S. Truman, a 100,000-ton nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, was slicing through the Red Sea, leading a carrier strike group near the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. Clear skies, calm seas, and then it happened. Alarms blared. Radar operators picked up fast-moving blips heading straight for the carrier. Drones, armed and hostile, launched by Houthi rebels from deep inside Yemen. It wasn't their first attempt. The Houthis have tried these kinds of stunts before, but this time they went bigger. Multiple drones fired over 2 consecutive days, April 1st and 2nd. And this time they weren't going after some lone destroyer or commercial tanker. They were aiming for the big prize. But here's the thing. Trying to take down a US aircraft carrier with repurposed commercial drones, that's like throwing pebbles at a battleship. You might make a splash, but you're not sinking anything. This time, the Navy wasn't caught off guard. Defensive systems went into high gear, sailors scrambled to their stations, and what happened next sent a very loud message. Not just to the Houthis, but to anyone even thinking of testing American steel in the Red Sea. So what happens when a rebel group dares to attack a US supercarrier with Iranian-backed drones? Let's just say the ocean got real loud. Rewind to just after the alarms first went off. The USS Harry S. Truman was operating in the southern Red Sea, part of Task Force 153, a multinational maritime security force patrolling one of the most dangerous shipping lanes on Earth. The threat of Houthi drones had been growing for months, especially after US airstrikes on launch sites inside Yemen. But this time was different. This was bold. These weren't random shots in the dark. The rebels were targeting the crown jewel of American naval power. It all began the night of April 1st. Two Iranian-designed drones, most likely Samad 3s, long-range loitering munitions capable of flying hundreds of kilometers, were detected by radar as they breached the strike group's defensive perimeter. Inside the Truman's Combat Information Center, or CIC, the room lit up like a Christmas tree. Spy 1 radar on a nearby Arleigh Burke-class destroyer confirmed the trajectory. Orders rang out across the ship. General quarters, all hands to battle stations. From the bridge to the engine rooms, sailors dropped everything. Metal boots slammed against steel decks. Watertight hatches clanged shut. Radios crackled, and the ship came alive. The first drone veered slightly, then dropped from the sky before reaching weapons range, probably jammed or spoofed by electronic warfare systems from an escorting cruiser. The second drone kept coming, flying low, hugging the radar clutter zone, dodging early detection. But then came the barked command, "Engage!" The CIWS, nicknamed Sea-Whiz, the ship's last line of defense, spun up. It's a 6-barreled radar-guided Gatling gun that fires 4,500 rounds per minute. That's 75 bullets per second. The crew calls it R2D2 with a bad attitude. Tracer rounds lit up the night sky like a fireworks show. Seconds later, boom, mid-air detonation. The drone became a fireball, raining harmless metal into the sea. On April 2nd, the Houthis doubled down. 4 more drones were launched in sequence. First contact came about 80 nautical miles out. The USS Gravely and USS Mason, destroyers in the Truman screen, launched SM-2 interceptors, long-range, high-speed missiles designed to obliterate airborne threats. 2 drones were destroyed in high altitude, but the third drone slipped through. It got dangerously close, just 12 miles from the Truman, skimming low over the waves. That's too close for comfort. The second CIWS turret roared to life, shredding it mid-air. The fourth drone didn't even make it out of Yemeni airspace. A Navy EA-18G Growler, an electronic warfare aircraft launched from the Truman's flight deck, jammed its signal, sending it crashing into the sea. Not a single U.S. ship was damaged, no injuries. Just bits of burnt drone debris bobbing in the waves. The message was loud and clear. Try that again, and you won't like the result. What's wild is how common this kind of attack has become. Since late 2023, the Houthis have turned the Red Sea into a shooting gallery. Commercial tankers, cargo ships, even warships have been fair game. But going after a US supercarrier? That's a whole different level of crazy. And yet here we are. The Truman Strike Group executed with precision, tight coordination, layered defense, and nerves of steel. Every sailor knew their role. Every system worked flawlessly. Quick question, what would you have done in that moment if you were in command? Hold fire and wait? Or light up the sky the second those drones showed up on radar? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We want to know how you'd handle the heat. And don't forget, subscribe for more stories from the front lines of modern warfare. Because in today's world, even the sky isn't safe from battle.